Hello, everybody. Welcome to our seventh artist talk. For today, we have with us Yekta. He is the artist for the Duat Residency shows, and I thought since we pushed the show till early September, now is a really perfect time to have the artists on. And so, um, you've heard him before, but I'll let him introduce himself again. But yeah, Yekta, you can talk. Yeah.
Hi everyone. My name is YEKTA CETINKAYA. I'm an artist from Istanbul, Turkey, currently living in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I am a narrative figurative painter. My painting practice, I usually explore themes that revolve around immigration, journeying, cultural identity, the
Mm,
clash between two cultures, that's those being mainly Western culture and Eastern or Middle Eastern to Southern European, and how that clash kind of has made me into this more I guess ambiguous cultural has given me this more ambiguous or nuanced cultural identity that is in between two things. That's yeah.
mhm. And so for those listening, we met during university, because both of us went to the same university, and you are still currently in university.
I still am in university. It's going to be my last year next year, so I'll be doing my grad show, all the stressing stuff that's
Oh yeah,
coming up.
you have to clean the building now.
Yeah.
Is it? Have you guys gotten any news on the building opening for graduation show or no?
I mean, it sounds like it's definitely going to be open. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, that's
Um, Other than that, the building's somewhat collapsing. I've heard that as well. Um,
that building has been
so
collapsing for 4 years.
yeah. There are plans to build a new building for our department in the future, but even Jakub, who's the chair of the department,
Mm,
chair of the visual arts department at the University of Ottawa, even he doesn't think he'll see it. So
yeah.
you know,
Do you
it's
have
you
you
know,
Have you heard the story about the FSS building? And for those listening, that's the Faculty of Social Sciences building in the U Ottawa.
no, what's up with that one?
That was supposed to be the art department's building. They
Oh,
got,
really?
yeah, dude. I managed to talk to Lorraine when she was chair, and
Mm-hmm.
they got as close, or I think it was Deborah. They got as close to picking out the door handles for the doors, and then the university came in and was like, "Nope, Faculty of Social Sciences," and we got,
Interesting.
and so like more context is the U Ottawa Fine Arts Department runs out of one of the oldest buildings on campuses.
It
It's
is
like
the
it is,
oldest building.
it is.
Yeah.
It's the father's home. So U Ottawa used to be a church before it was a university, and so we study arts. We draw naked people in the rooms where fathers used to sleep, which is hilarious to think of now.
Well, there you go. That's your today's dose of contemporary art for you. Is the
Yeah.
juxtaposition there? The yeah.
Well, well now because as we talk about grad show, like I've been getting more and more curious because since you're still going into fourth year and all that, how has like the university experience changed, at least when it comes to how you work now that with all like the COVID stuff?
Um, you know, I feel like it hasn't made that big of a difference in my practice because I started really getting serious about things in
Mm.
my third year, and by the time it was the end of my third year and throughout my fourth year, everything was like closed and
Mm.
we did not have access to anything, the studios, the spaces. But I knew that I wanted to put significantly more time into my practice.
Mm.
And that's basically what I did. I live basically on campus right now. So
Oh,
it
you're
wouldn't have made a huge difference for me. It would be a 5-minute walk to the studios in the building. I had to somewhat put together a studio at home
Mm.
by like professional lighting, you know, clear enough space, and you just adjust the space, do all that. But once that was done, I was set, and now I can just
Just go.
work even large scale from home. So
Nice.
that's been
It's good to hear people saying I can work large scale from home, because that's one of the biggest limitations we used to have. It's
yeah,
just like, oh,
definitely. Yeah.
no space. Uh,
And I do live in a one-bedroom apartment
y-
with my girlfriend,
mm.
so and it's still been very doable. I mean, she's been super helpful too, thanks to her. Um, but yeah, it's totally doable. It really is. Like right now, I am working on a 48 by 72-inch oil painting,
Oh wow.
and people complain about, oh, I can't paint with oils at home,
You,
fumes.
you,
Yes, you can.
yeah, you absolutely
Space.
can.
It's still like everyone out there who are thinking about it. It's totally doable,
Uh,
and not. I haven't spent that much money on the studio.
like
Really.
that's the funny thing is, like, when you go looking for professional studios outside your home, a lot of them tell you we don't want oils in the building. You know.
It's totally.
It
I'm just using Gamsol. I'm sure you've heard of
Oh
it.
yeah. Oh,
It is the safest studio. It's the safest paint
well,
thinner out there, and no, there's literally little to no health hazard from
exact
it. And as long as
even
you're wearing gloves and not eating cadmium pigments,
yeah, exactly that. And also, I know this from Andrew Morrow. Andrew Morrow used to be a professor. He developed like a sickness from using too many odorless mineral spirits,
yeah, no,
and
I don't even use those. It's
yeah,
just
I barely, like, when I use that, and it's like his solution to it. He just switched over to linseed oil,
yeah,
and
exactly.
barely anything. And
Yeah,
even when we were using odorless mineral spirits, like in the studio, like, about like my own personal experience is like we were not allowed to use oils in the second building, but because I landed my studio there, I had to. I was like, fuck it, I still have to use it.
yeah,
And my Martin was like, just open the windows and
yeah.
just make
I
sure.
wait. So when they assign you the studios, do they not ask you what you're doing? Do they just like give you a random studio?
Studio, actually, the way it went about it was you got assigned a studio depending on who you were in class with.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so, like, it was actually weird because most of Martin's classes, like, actually, no, it's studio selection was very fucking weird because I got told I got to choose from the Wilford building, not the. I like either it was like you, Tarek, or Anubis, you get the option choose from there, and then some other students had the option. I think it might be name based, but I actually don't know.
Huh.
I know for a
Because
fact
it
though.
should be. Well, I feel like it should be depending on the person's practice. Because if someone's making very small paintings and someone's, I don't know, painting on 5 by 7
Exactly.
surfaces, you won't be able to fit into a small,
Ex- but like, honestly, like, the best studios to have are the one. So, not the third floor studio. It's
No.
too it's too
Okay.
open. It's too open, and like, that's a thing to also those listening. If you're choosing a studio space, it's good to have your own closed space, even if you're sharing it with another artist, just because you have a space where you can lock up, leave your ideas there, leave the stuff that you want to use there. Um, it's like with the open space, like, especially with the U Ottawa, like, man, the thefts that used to happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like that I literally could, like, leave my computer there,
Yeah.
and not worry about it because I knew, like, other than me, it was the janitor, who had the
Exactly.
key.
Yeah.
And then it just, like, it's nice just a little. It trains you as like a young artist to work within your own little space. You make it your space because in the third floor studios, like, or any open studio, like, you have to work with, like, hidden boundaries with other artists, and it's like if you're working with something that smells like shit, people complain, it's like it's all that jazz. It's yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I'm kind of excited about it, but
Yo,
we'll see.
fourth year studios are fun. It's actually one of the most beneficial things, an artist, because
Yeah,
it's
I'd
like
imagine. Yeah.
Martin just leaves you in your room to make art, and it's like it's
Yeah.
nice. Um, well, speaking of making art, I wanted to ask, when did you start making art, sir? How long have you been? So like usually, right? We have this classification in university where it's like your student work is not your professional artist work, right? You're not a full professional artist until you
Yeah.
graduate. But I take all that and I say fuck all that. I don't give a fuck. We're artists when we choose to actually persevere in our obsession and our hobbies with art, you know. And so when did that start?
So that's an interesting question because from time to time, of course, it's not very often,
Mm,
but you'll see some student works, and if those works were to be made by professional artists who are successful and celebrated,
mm,
the works would be put on pedestals and
absolutely.
they would be considered successful artworks. So yes, it's completely absurd that sometimes your student work is not considered to be of high quality or professional grade, which can be. I've seen multiple students make better work. I mean, of course, this is me, my subjective opinion. But I've seen students make better work than profs
Oh, absolutely.
sometimes.
Oh,
It happens.
like, for people listening, there is hidden politics between profs and students where professors can go after students because they're better than them. You know, like that has happened. We've had like professors, like some like U Ottawa as a program has a powerhouse of professors, right? Every photography professor has won the Yusuf Karsh Award, right? Their painting profs are amazing, you know, and their drawing profs are fucking insane. But some profs literally have held grudges against students before because of their quality of work, you know?
I mean, it's never happened in my classes because, well, you don't see the prof really making work,
Yeah.
of course. But you go out of your own way and explore what the profs have done. You look into it, and
Mm-hmm.
you'll see that there have been instances of students making better quality work than
Oh,
profs or
absolutely.
professional artists. By the way, yeah, they're not, like you said, they're not just profs. Usually, people who are teaching in Bachelor of Fine Arts or major Master of Fine Arts or art school program, they're
Mm.
always, professional artists.
It's yeah, and it's
Yeah,
like the money's also used to
yeah,
fund their research as well.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
like you hear more about funding for research for art history professors because
Hmm.
they actually have to, like it. It's weird. It's actually weird because like for those listening, like universities like have tenure, right? And you as a professor, regardless of where you're teaching, you have to keep proving yourself until you get tenure. And then you even hear professors that say like, yeah, we've had a few professors that once they got tenure, they just slack off because tenure is like guaranteed payment and guaranteed
Yeah.
position. Um, but a
Oh,
lot of, go ahead.
sorry, no, no, no. I guess I did not answer your question. I noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, that question to me is a bit tricky too because I would say
Hmm.
seriously, or I guess seriously, it's only been 2 or 3 years,
Well,
2 years
well,
tops, since I started seriously making art. Picking this up as something I want to pursue in life, really, and just
well, like,
also putting enough of my energy and time and
mm,
thought into it
but
so that.
okay, but like,
But
when did you get into it as like a hobby? You know, because it's like,
hobby,
yeah,
yeah, I
because,
was
mm,
well, I used to draw a lot as a kid. It's not really an interesting story, mine. I used to draw a lot. I loved comics and
mm,
superhero movies and all of that. So I used to draw that sort of stuff, and I was, I guess, somewhat good at it.
mm,
So we have a family friend who was a painter. So I took some not formal classes, but I kind of trained with her in a
mm,
sense in her studio. I would just go there once a week, learn, drawing, a little painting, and all of that. And I
nice.
was, I guess, around 11 or 12 or 13. I'm not too sure when I started that. So I had a little bit of a background there. Then in high school, I kind of dropped visual arts completely
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to pursue music.
Oh,
Um, at the time, I was really into hip hop, and
hold on. Were you
uh,
rapping?
I was not rapping. No,
Okay,
uh,
I had to ask.
that's
Yo, listen, if you got rap records, yo, listen, send them over, please.
no. Well, yeah, that could have happened in a, in another universe, maybe an alternative dimension. But so yeah, I wanted to go into music. I did for a couple of years study music theory and music
Okay.
composition, and I basically wanted to learn how to actually compose music.
Um,
Um,
Composed like classical or just modern?
not well, I wanted to produce music, but I
Mm.
wanted to be able to compose in a sense that you write your
Right.
melodies, you
Okay. I
write
see.
your
I see
chord
what you mean.
progressions, you can put together a track
Okay, I
basically,
gotcha.
regardless of somewhat genre, I guess. But it
You can.
towards the end of those 2 years,
Mm.
I had to make a decision because you're applying for university,
Mm.
and it was still very vague at the time. So I applied for the music program at University of Ottawa, and I
Mm-hmm.
applied for the visual arts program at the University of Ottawa,
Oh, nice.
and I got accepted to both. And I had to make a decision, and I thought about it, and I was like, the visual arts field is way more diverse
Mm.
in a sense, because music, well, it is just it's a sonic field, but the visual arts field had been it had branched into
Mm.
this uh, chaotic. There really are no boundaries in
Not
the visual
anymore.
arts
No.
world now. So yes, I was like, that's more diverse. I want to see what I can do with this, and I literally kind of went blindly into uh, a fine arts education because at the time I hadn't really been
Mm.
making art either. I had a portfolio that I assembled from my past stuff.
Mm.
But I got there and I started doing what you did a year or two before me, taking the photography, the sculpture, the painting, the all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while I was like, yeah, this is I can see myself doing this, and I was passionate about image making and storytelling and exploring the visual language. So it stuck. So now I'm yeah, that's the story basically.
Well, it's like it's also not like music is so far from art that you can't use it in art at all, you know?
Oh yeah, of course it's not. Yeah,
And
yeah.
well, funny enough, I was gonna say like you may have lucked out with your decision because the U Ottawa music program is it's good, but it's very limited. I think you only learn jazz or classical.
Yeah, no, I think that is the case. And also I agree with you because even though
The
there's this joke of, artists not being able to make any money. I feel like if you're a music program graduate, it
it's
could even
worse.
be more difficult. It's probably worse. Yeah.
Well, here, let me ask you this: how do you think philosophy students feel?
I Same thing. Yeah, I guess that's probably worse too. It's like
It's like
yeah,
I legitimately thought about that once. I was like, holy shit! Like how like because there's no job as philosopher, you
yeah.
know.
No, it's like you're either gonna be writing stuff, and I don't know how you're gonna where you're gonna submit it, and someone's gonna somewhat publish your writings, and maybe you'll
That's
make some
true.
money off of that. But like all of us, or most of us who choose to study or pursue a career in the arts, early on in your career, you're gonna have a second job
Oh yeah,
probably, and you'll have to somewhat sustain yourself off of that and put enough time into your practice, to your creative practice.
mm.
And if that works out for you, maybe you can make the transition to a full-time creative. But
Mm.
again, it's like I can't imagine going into just, I don't know, philosophy and then,
It's
but
well. Do you play any instruments by any? Well, like I mean, you must play instruments since you
so
almost.
yes, I did play the piano for a good while, but now it seems I've forgotten most of it.
You know,
Because I haven't practiced, and I think now it's been 5 6 years. Um, Last year I did pick up a guitar. I'm learning that still, but I haven't been. Time's been a bit of a problem. I do have a good knowledge of music theory, but again, I haven't really used it in the last 5 years, so it's been a bit.
It's just like it withers away slowly. My mom used to try to get me to piano practice, and
Mm.
I hated it as a child.
Yeah, no,
'Cause,
it's same. I started the first time I started was when I was 7, but I only I think did it for a year. So
mm,
yeah.
um, well, do you, as in, well, so now that I know that you have an interest in music, right?
Hmm.
Which because I didn't know that you, like, we've talked about music a little bit before, but I didn't know that
Yeah,
you were actually pursuing, like, you were thinking of being a musician, right?
yeah.
And now that you are going down the art path, right?
Hmm.
Has, like you said, yeah, you can mix. We just talked about this. Like, yeah, you can mix music with art, but like, has that ever crossed your mind lately? Because I know in the past 2 years we've had in like in our personal experience with the University of Ottawa, we've had a couple of audio based works, that either
Yes.
that
Yeah.
incorporated some element of music in them, and so even I, who doesn't, I don't make fucking music. I suck at it. I have interest in audio works. So has that door opened up for you, or have you thought about it at all?
It definitely has. It was mostly I thought about it during I guess the initial stages of the program because the first year, you take the media course as well, which is a video art,
Mm.
video or multimedia installation course. And for me,
Did you like it?
it's definitely doable. It's definitely something. If I would want it to happen more, I guess, in a more spontaneous way,
Mm.
because if it happens naturally, I would incorporate it.
Mm.
If and I also think it would go better with probably installation art. Just pairing painting and music seems a bit. It could happen. It
Mm.
definitely can, but it's it would have to happen more naturally. I think I
I
wouldn't want
see.
to force it. It would be like a, I don't know, when you incorporate music, when you put music and painting next to each other, I wouldn't want the music to be feel just like a
Mm.
soundtrack that's playing in the room, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense because it's
Uh,
like, well, I was gonna say, like, there is a reason why it's not done a lot, and because it can border on the line of extreme cliche.
yes, exactly.
Um.
Because I mean, yeah,
Mm.
music is basically time-based art, and painting is, unless your painting is very ephemeral or just changing every few seconds, painting's not.
Mm.
So there's this kind of huge gap between them, and putting them together, like you said, you would not want it to be that cliche of, let's say you're showing work and you have your paintings up and there's music playing in the background.
Mm.
Is it just background music? What is it doing there? Is it adding anything to the experience? Who made the music? And yeah, with installation or what's the word I'm looking for, with interactive art, I think that could be, sound could be a much more powerful incorporation, but
Well,
we'll see.
have you thought of interactive auto, like, ever since? Well, I know I've mentioned the sort of interactive art around you because of just NFT space and all the
Hmm.
interactive
Hmm.
and weird stuff. But have you thought about interactive art at all, or no?
Well,
Cause
here's the thing. This is one of the reasons why I think walked away from the music production thing.
oh, okay.
I'm, of course, to a degree, interested in the, let's say, the intellectual and social political part of my art. But
Mm.
at the same time, I am. You can totally see this in my landscapes and stuff. I'm a huge romantic
Mm.
in a sense that to me, art has to be a bit more, and I'm going to use this word, I'm not using it in a derogatory way,
Mm.
sorry. uh, it has to be a bit more primitive. Primitive, by primitive I mean more urgent and a bit more of a, I don't like to sit down
Mm.
and say, okay, so let's say I'm exploring a theme that is journeying,
Mm.
traveling, immigration. I don't want to sit down and think, okay, this is the content. How do I make a work that is socio politically valid or interesting
Mm.
and make it, relevant? And I don't just, go around constructing ideas and turning that into a painting, really. I'd much prefer if first I was thinking of imagery and putting images together and the visuals,
Mm.
and I construct the image, and then a
You
narrative, and then meanings, or then something social political or not gets
added.
derived out of the work, different interpretations come out of the work. So in that sense, uh,
Mm.
using technology, putting, when you make interactive work, when you make more technology based work, there is computers get in between, other devices get in between,
Mm.
which did not, I guess, interest me that much. I just wanted to be using my hands and just
I see.
touching the medium, and just making, slapping the painting onto the canvas or on some other surface. So I wanted to have that more. Again, I'm going to use a word that is usually used in a negative sense, primal. uh, but I'm not using it in a negative way.
Mm.
It's I wanted to have that connection with my material. It was always so. You could still make interactive work that way. Of
Mm.
course, you can. It's totally doable. There are people who do it, but for me, again, it was. In the future, will I maybe work in different mediums?
Mm.
Of course, I mean, but I would, again, we'll see. I'll wait for that to happen. It'll happen more naturally. I
Oh.
think I'll probably make installation work too in the future if I get the chance. I'll make sculpture
Mm.
too. I really want to, but right now I am painting, and I do not want to. Yeah, I've seen brilliant work that's been done with using installation computers.
Mm. Well,
Yeah, I just did not want
I was gonna like.
the only machine I was using was the brush, I guess.
Hey, no, that's fair, and it's like I was
Yeah,
also gonna say like um it's very interesting that you mention primitive and primal, and then yeah, I was I laughed a little bit when you had to be like, hey,
mhm.
I'm using it in a good light, right? Because
Yeah, because lately, especially when people talk about the Western and how the
mm.
modern Western painting was so much influenced by African, what they call
Mm.
at the time primitive art, but they use it in a negative way because they did not want to say it was modern or at the time contemporary art. They
Mm.
didn't want to label it that. They were like primitive African masks,
It's
which is not art,
yeah, and it's like and
but
well, and now sort of like the way I've seen it is like now essentially, or like the way I've always viewed it, right, is when I first became aware that Orientalist paintings of
yeah,
Egypt were not realistic, right? For example,
yeah,
or
exactly,
Orientalist paintings of Turkey were not realistic. The
yeah,
first thought was I was like, okay, that's the perfect gateway for us to use Orientalism as a painting genre.
exactly,
It's like
yeah,
and to those listening, and Yekta, I'll send you the essay when it actually goes live. But Vane or Serso Ahab on Twitter, he wrote an essay, and I got to read it because he's editing it now. But it's a lot of like what people fail to realize is like a lot of us now are essentially have cued in to the art historical history, like the backgrounds and the facts, right?
hmm
And now we're starting to use it in our own light, right? Because it's like our people were the ones that were called um, primitive, even
exactly,
savage,
yeah,
even
yeah,
savages at times, right? And then
yeah.
to me, the way I looked at it, I was like, okay, cool. Now I get to use it, and I
Yeah,
get to
and I guess that's what I've been doing with the rugs and the,
mhm.
you know, yeah, exactly.
I so I fucking love the Rock Project.
Yeah,
I fucking talk about it every fucking time. I literally wish I owned the fucking rug. bro. You don't even know. You don't even know that rug. To those listening, it's like because Turkish rugs, at least in the Middle East, are like the it's like a sign of not wealth, right? It's not a sign of wealth, but it's a sign of
Um,
stability. Well, I don't know. At least in
well,
Egypt.
yeah, yes. Well, I guess in the West,
Mm.
ever since the, let me see, I think 15th, 16th century,
Yeah,
they've been basically
they go crazy.
importing them from the Orient,
Mm.
and they were signs of wealth. They
Yeah,
were.
and
Today,
mm.
I guess they still are because
I think Turkish handmade rugs, right? They're
Turkish and Persian usually, yeah,
Persian. Okay.
Iranian, yeah, they are. Nowadays, well, I guess they appear in Renaissance or 16th,
That's very
17th,
true.
18th, 19th century painting as well, a
That's very true.
lot. But they're always in the background of these Western
Mm.
portraits of important figures. There's just that
Mm.
Turkish or Iranian rug in the back as a decorative object. But I guess the way I've been using them now is that I use them as surfaces to paint on. But
Mm.
what I paint on them is, again, the Western figures,
Mm.
which have been somewhat influential to me. I've,
Mm.
learned about these figures in high school, in university, but I've mostly learned about just them. I did
Mm.
not learn that much about. I've We barely learned anything about Turkish
Yeah.
music or Turkish visual language, Turkish visual art, Turkish folklore,
Mm.
which is actually much goes way back compared to, I don't know, Western
Mm.
folklore. So that's what I had found very problematic, and it had become something I started questioning because then I never learned about all this, yet I'm so invested in
Mm.
art and culture. But well, what happened there? What went wrong? And I just
I.
was learning about all this Western stuff, but like I'm just like, I was born in this country in Turkey,
Mm.
and I never even really learned about all this. What happened?
I've.
That was a
I've.
that's kind of the question, I guess.
I've had the same question. I think a lot of us, a lot, like at least immigrants that travel abroad, like face that question the moment we start to look at our own culture sometimes,
Yeah,
because it's just like, oh shit, I've focused so much on this that I just didn't focus on that,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and um, it's 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 actually, yeah, no, you said it perfectly, you took the words out of my mouth, sir. How could you
And
just?
it is also like, it is also a self critique in that sense.
Mm.
It is not just being like, oh, the West did it.
Oh,
It was like, it
absolutely.
was them, and they like took all our stuff, and then they're they had the high art and whatever, and they
Mm.
fed it to us
Oh,
that way.
absolutely.
It's not just that,
Yeah.
we played a huge part too. Maybe we, as in our nations, failed to do our part in a sense. And
I absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
so well, even to like, I mean, to those listening, we both grew up in Muslim based countries, right?
Hmm.
Um, and even if you're not Muslim, you will face the sort of relationship an Islamic country has with its art and its own history that goes back beyond pre-Islam, right? Because
Yes. Yeah.
in Egypt, you, you know, the people, like, at least I don't know about Turkish people per se, but in Egypt, like, my own personal experience is like us Egyptians, right? In school, we got told the pyramids are great, but that's the age of ignorance because they did not have God. And you grow up for so long essentially just like putting that history behind you because of religious based ideas and also just the lack of historical education. um, I have no problem, at least personally, I have no problem saying the Middle Eastern education system is beyond fucked and has been fucked for many fucking years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
and and it's like, to me, it's like I remember talking to you once because for those listening, the Hagga Sophia, um, is used. It's now classified as a mosque again, right?
It is.
Which piss. I literally went to and talked to Yekta outside while having a smoke about
Yeah.
this when I heard the news, because you know, to me it was the coolest sign of sort of like unity and understanding history, because to those listening, the Hagia Sophia for was a church first, and then
It was.
got turned into a mosque, and then they just, instead of destroying the religious images in the church, they covered them up. And so when archaeologists later discovered these images, they removed the plaster, and it now turned into a mosque and church at the same time, right?
Yes,
That
but what
mm,
happened there? Yeah, exactly. So for a while, it was not a site of uh,
worship.
worship. It
Mm,
was a museum.
mm.
But now our government decided that since Turkey is a Muslim country, that it should be a mosque again, and they opened it up as a.
It's and
Yeah,
to those listening, like nothing like the Hagia Sophia exists in the Middle East. Nothing. Like that history, like I literally have no problem saying that history has been destroyed completely. You know,
yeah,
like you, and it's like we also have to deal with that as artists, because we have so much of our own countries going against us, and we're like, oh fuck, you know.
yeah.
Um,
And I think that's the reason why we kind of end up here.
mm,
But you know, we're still somewhat commenting on all that's going on over there. We end up in Canada or like in the West because obviously life is much safer and stable and
well, it's safer, stable, and the career paths that are
there's so much more hope.
yeah,
You know,
there
that's
is.
what it is. Yeah,
And like survival rates,
exactly. Yeah.
just like people don't realize, like I still get surprised when an ambulance shows up on time, let alone a car, or like a car moves away from an ambulance.
Oh yeah.
That shit doesn't happen in the third world. You know,
Nope, it doesn't.
people will drive in front of an ambulance to drive faster, you know, or drive
Yeah,
behind it,
yeah,
like.
yeah,
And and but I think it's also given us an edge, because we got to experience, you know, we weren't born in the West, so we're not getting a sort of second-hand experience from our parents that's been sort of filtered through their own experiences, you know, and their own beliefs. No,
yeah,
we had a first-hand experience, and then we also have a first-hand experience in a sort of opposing culture.
yeah,
and
yeah. That is completely true. Yeah,
and to me personally, I think like that gives an artist, like it gives us sort of an edge, you know, because we're aware of what's happening politically, in, and globally, you know, because
yeah. No, I totally agree because sorry,
no, go ahead.
yeah. So there's a difference if you were to, of course,
Mm,
if your family were to go through all of that, let's say, and they immigrate
mm,
to a Western, more stable country, and you're born there and you never experienced what they've been through, it's you could there's still remnants of that, and there's still an influence, of course, a huge influence on your family and with
mm,
their experiences. But you know, being the generation that has had, I don't know, 15, 20 years of their life in one place and going through that journey, that really does give you a somewhat of an edge, like you said.
mm,
It's because you really, since we've been, you know, we were not kids when we left.
mm.
We could comprehend and understand what was going on. We could comment on it, even though we were still young, so we didn't know that much about social political issues. But you still have the viewpoint and
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, um, were you there where when Turkey had its protests? Um,
Which ones?
yeah, no, as I was asking that, I was like,
Are you
hold it,
talking
hold
about
it.
the coup? Are you talking about the coup?
I'm talking about the one, like everybody calls it the Arab Spring, but I hate that fucking name. You know, like it was the protest that happened around literally when every country in the Middle East was going against its government, like around 2000. Did something happen in Turkey? I don't.
Something like always happens. Dude,
Let me.
that's why I'm asking which one.
2012 revolution protests Turkey. Well, I mean, Have you
We did
mm,
have something around that time, which happened. Well, it was set off by. So there's this famous square in
mm,
Turkey, in one of the most populated areas of the city. There's a park,
mm,
and the government wanted to take down the park and build. I don't know. I think they wanted to build a mall
mm,
or a mosque or something like that. And people got very upset that one of the last parks in a major city was going to be destroyed.
I
And
see.
that really set off a series of events
Mm,
and protests, which went on for almost, I don't know, a year, I think.
okay.
People, literally thousands, tens of thousands of people slept in the park.
Mm,
Police showed up, but it's just conflicts always, Middle East, there's always a conflict, there's always a protest.
yeah. Like
So yeah,
the only reason I
that's
was asking is because like we also have that experience. You know, we
yeah.
witnessed that. Um, you know, and it's like it gives you a sort of insight. You know, it's like, yeah, we're not old enough to politically comment on it, but we're old enough to understand the effects of what's happening on our society. You know, we're not blind as like 18-year-olds or 16-year-olds to like why these people are protesting. You know. Um,
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, that's what I was trying to say basically. It's that you really get to experience it, and maybe we just grow a little older, and then we
mm,
are able to somewhat comment on these things, and that's why it happens a bit later in our art, maybe,
mm,
because when I first got into art school, I didn't care at all
mm,
about for commenting on anything social political in my art. I was like, I had this utopian
mm.
idea of art where I thought art had to be more of this pure expression of the, I don't know what it was, because I now I'm more well, I felt that art had to be for the sake of art
Mm.
completely, and it had to be this, I don't know how you'd describe it. It is more spiritual experience, maybe,
Mm.
because for a while I was very much into abstract expressionism and all that too,
Mm.
because it was cool, right? It was just this uh, splash of paint, but yeah, I moved on from that very quickly.
Yeah, it sort of
You know,
happens. It's like everybody's like, "Yeah, I like this," and then we discover one thing, and we're like, "Wait a minute, hold up
yeah,
here."
no, you're like, no,
Yeah, I
guess
can't.
not. Yeah,
It's like, you know, have you ever seen The Godfather?
yeah.
You
Oh,
you seen
for a
Godfather?
second I thought it was a question.
Well, hey, have you seen The Godfather 3?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
You know, like, you know that quote where it's like, "I thought I was out and they pulled me back in." You know,
Hmm.
that's just us. We're like, "Oh fuck, I came here. I don't want to deal with the politics of my country." Oh fuck, here we go again. You know.
Yeah, because I feel like you notice, unless you're very, very privileged,
Mm.
you realize the effect it's had on you
Uh-huh.
and the people you're close to, your family, your
Absolutely.
community, and the mark it has left on you.
Mm.
I feel like if you're someone who is this is tough because it is really it is a huge debate in the art world. It is a huge debate in the social
Mm.
sciences. Uh, how do we? Wait, let me just gather my thoughts real quick.
You know,
Um, I find that if you come from a place of huge socio-political distress and catastrophe,
mm.
choosing to not comment
Mm.
on any of that, especially if they've changed your life or your community or your close circle's life,
Mm.
is really somewhat of a huge privilege because it, it
Mm.
it's it is right there in your identity. It's really influenced your personality, but at the same time, it is the somewhat truth.
Mm.
Why did you and I end up here? Basically, we didn't really come here because we just wanted to go out into the world and
Yeah.
adventure.
Oh yeah.
We didn't really do it out of pure joy, and
No.
we were not just like, oh, there's this land of, well,
It's.
if everything was fine in our countries,
Mm.
let's say we had a similar education system to what they have in Canada. Let's say we have uh, a similar social political environment
Mm.
to the Canadian or the most major Western countries ones. Would we leave?
Oh,
No, probably
absolutely not.
not. Definitely not. If
We
things were okay, we would have stayed, right?
we
So
wouldn't. I would even to go as far as say we wouldn't even. Most of us wouldn't even be political at all.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so that since that has such a huge influence
Mm.
on, let's say, my life or yours or others, of course I find that it will manifest in
Mm.
my art, and I find that is the more natural course of things,
Mm.
if that makes sense, because otherwise I guess I was kind of ignoring what was there, and I wanted to just be this guy who was like, oh, no politics for me, thanks. No, well, that didn't really work.
Yeah,
But at
man.
the same time, I do not believe that, art is just one thing. Art
Mm.
can be propaganda. It can be just about emotions.
Absolutely.
It can be about anything, basically.
And it's, and well, funny enough, you say that because I was gonna ask you. We've had a debate in this space. Like it's been happening in the NFT space for like a year now, right? And it's like, should artists mint as many works as they want? You know, and in the sense, the question is actually really, should artists create as many pieces and artworks as they want? You know, and with that assumption comes like, is the artist going to create one type of work as many as they want? No. And so, as a person who's into politics, but both of us can recognize that, sometimes we need to we catch a break from that. We have to, like, separate ourselves a little bit, and then come back to it, and so do you think that, or not that do you think, but do you actively, practice multiple subjects, multiple topics of depictions, just so that you can give yourself a little break from, the political talk, or like the heavy subject stuff? And do you consider that, to be as successful as your political works? Because that's the whole argument, is like, yeah, we want artists to create 6 pieces a month or whatever, because then it's really
You
good
know,
work, and then you sit there like, but man, an abstract painting can be as good as a political commentary painting,
yeah,
you know?
you know what? That this question you just asked is a brilliant question, and I think it
Oh,
is
thank you.
quite possibly the most relevant question. It should be the most relevant question in the contemporary art world, I think,
Mhm.
because first I'm going to answer your more specific question,
Mm.
like my practice. Yes, I do make. I could make work that has social political
Mm.
connotation, but at the same time, sometimes I really just want to maybe paint or draw a flower or
Mm.
a cat or an animal
Mm.
or a landscape that really has, at least to me, no social political connotations. There's no, ulterior, nothing to really, unwind and
Mm.
it, there. Not that it cannot, not that it can't give birth to different
Yeah,
interpretations, but
it's
and
like,
yes, I do think that a painting of a flower can be as good of an artwork or a better artwork than an artwork that has very explicit social political connotations,
mm.
and that is in today's art world somewhat of a huge problem because
Oh yeah. Oh,
you'll
absolutely.
see you'll see institutions constantly pursue work that is social political
Mm.
because now that is becoming the, I guess, high art of our day.
Mm.
If you're not commenting on anything social political, or if or well, here's the thing: there are two paths to that too.
Mm.
uh, you can actively choose to, like I said, like the way I work. I was talking about the way I work, right? I
Mm.
was like, if social political narratives or connotations are going to come out of the work, I would want that to happen. I would want that to happen naturally.
Mm.
So, I'd say, okay, I'm going to paint this portrait on this rug and see what happens. That was more intuitive for me. I didn't just sit down and think, how do I work these concepts and these
Mm.
juxtapositions, and how do I make something that's socio-politically relevant? That was not really the case. I just put the image on there, and then,
The work became. Mm.
then something happened. And there are some artists who do that,
Mm.
which I find to be a more natural and powerful way of doing things.
Mm.
Then there are artists who say, okay, I want to make propaganda. I want to comment on this, this,
Mm-hmm.
this, and I want to do this through art. Now I personally could not work that way. I think I find something very problematic about that. Then,
I agree
why
with
not
you.
go into I don't know, politics, go into,
Exactly.
because I'm sorry, but like arts, I think arts social political power is a bit overrated. It's really I don't think it is as
Mm.
powerful as we think it is, or I don't think it has as much of an immediate influence as we
I
think it is. It does. I really don't think it does. So again, it's just this: a painting of a flower can be
mm.
a much more successful artwork than a social political artwork, even though the social political artwork may seem much more relevant and empathetic, but that doesn't necessarily make it better visual
Mm.
art, or that doesn't make it a better uh, yeah,
Uh,
work of art,
you know,
basic.
I agree with you 100%. And it's like, sometimes you just as an artist, you just want to just make something that looks fucking cool. That's it. You know, that's a like sometimes literally as artists, our motivation to make a piece is like I just want to make something that looks pleasant to me that I enjoy. With no meaning behind it. It just looks nice. You
Oh
know.
yeah, exactly. It's just, because you can also get so much joy out of
Mm-hmm.
beauty, and there's nothing wrong with that, as I think something we nowadays dismiss as if it's something bad when you make a
I
pleasant
mm.
pleasant painting that is uplifting,
And
which is some people, and I'm sure this has happened to you in
mm.
university classes and critiques. Now, I'm not talking about people who just, sit down and say, I'm going to paint a portrait of my dog, and it is a very conventional painting or a very
Mm.
conventional flower painting. I'm not talking about that. But then there's going to be some people who really go out of their ways to make something beautiful, but it's also, new, it's also fresh, it's
Mm.
also exciting. And there will be people who will dismiss that because they will be like, well, what does it mean?
Yep.
Well, did you comment on anything? No. Is it about racism at all? Is it about immigration at all? Is it about anything?
Mm-hmm.
No. Then, well, no, it's not as good as my work, because my work is,
Yeah.
uh, politically correct, and my work comments on all of these things.
Oh,
Well,
well, I agree.
that
With
really just upsets me so much, basically.
to like the funniest thing to me is like the thing that upset me in university, and the thing that upset me the most about it, it wasn't even coming from other immigrants, right? It was coming from just people who have not immigrated at all. People with no political experience, like no actual
Exactly.
hard.
People who have had, let's say, maybe a bit more privilege, and people who had a more comfortable
Yeah, like
life. Yes, exactly.
and
Yeah.
you're just sitting there. It's like yeah, but like in the same sense, like it's really great that you say that, right? Because like we will sit in art history classes and hear about how it's problematic to have a 40 people show all the artists from India and call it the Indian show, right? And then the same people will turn around and then be like, but your work isn't commenting on where you're from, or your work isn't commenting on the issues your people are dealing with. What are you doing? And it's like they completely dismiss the fact that it's like, yeah, but I can do both at the same time, and both of them can be extremely successful, you know?
Exactly, and it's also we've gotten so used to, I think, associating major artists with just one
Mm,
thing. This, Picasso, Cubism. Um, you have,
that's
let's say, someone
very
more
true.
contemporary. One of my favorites was, or for a while it's been Anselm Kiefer. He makes
Mm,
these huge landscapes.
that's
When
true.
you do that, it almost makes artists into these blocks
Mm,
of, or just a label of a thing, and that they cannot, can they not do anything else? Have they not done anything else?
that's
Are they
that's
not capable of making something completely new? Do they
that's
have to keep making the same thing? Or is it just because you're an immigrant, does your whole work have to be about that,
immigration.
just that
Yeah,
yeah, you have other
exactly.
experiences, you can't just, and people can choose not to identify their practices and themselves with just that one experience. You can be someone who has really faced
Hardship.
hardship, but you do not have to identify with that hardship. You can focus on something else. You can move on from it. You can move on to something completely different or the
Mhm.
opposite of it. And yeah, it really is tricky in today's
Absolutely. I mean,
uh,
like
social sciences and art.
it, it's
It's
it's tricky, and like there is this weird, like I would also say, like there's this weird fear of artists getting typecast. We've heard about it all the time, where an artist is painting these specific paintings because the clients like them, but he doesn't like them. You know, and they've been caught into that sort of loop, and like I hate to bring up Picasso because he's not I'm not a big fan of all his work, but my dad loves his work like none other, and the biggest thing he loves about his work, he's like, he literally we talked one time and he goes, like Picasso's successful as he is because he didn't tie himself down to one art historical movement, like one art movement only. The guy kept it fresh until he died, sort of. And to me that's been like one of the things where it's like you always have to keep advancing, and it's like you can't lock yourself into, I'm just going to comment on death you know in my country for all my career, because then at some point you're going to exhaust all the ideas that you can have. um,
You really do, and first of all, you yourself get bored,
oh,
and people
absolutely.
get bored too because they when they go see your work, or when they pull up your, let's say, Instagram page, then they know what to expect. They're like,
Exactly.
oh, what did he do? Oh, the same old, yeah.
Exactly. And um I was also, and I actually was going to say, because I saw a tweet like a few weeks back in the space, right, where somebody was like, art should be good propaganda. And I was like, first of all, if you're making art that you're, if it, like you said, if you're sitting down and you're thinking, I'm gonna make good propaganda, you failed. Number one, at least the way I look at it, I'm like, that's wow. That's all. Like, other than failing, it's problematic because you're actively participating in in a form of manipulation, right? And then, but funny enough, works that have the biggest effect on society, sometimes are the least propagandistic works out there, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then over time, because of what's happening politically, they take on an image that has, like, that has socio-political meanings, that then later, okay, now this piece has become used as propaganda, right? And it's like,
It's funny you said that,
mm,
because in a sense, I guess, in the last 100 years, that's always happened, almost always happened in a negative sense.
mm,
Because in modernism, there were so many issues with all the imagery and representation and cultural appropriation,
mm,
and so many other issues again, that most of the artists were actually making these works that deemed to be great and futuristic and modern at the time.
mm,
But then today we looked at them and we were like, oh, they were so problematic,
Exactly.
and then they become more political
Mm.
rather than just objects of beauty. That is very interesting when you think of, I don't know, like Degas' ballerina paintings and sculptures. You
Mm.
know, they were like children of
Or
the ages of 12, 13. They were ballerinas, but they were also prostitutes, and he used to, frequent those
mm. Oh,
places.
or or
And
even like Egon Schiele's some of Egon Schiele's drawings.
exactly, and his goal was not to comment on and bring forward this toxic and damaging space. That was not his intention, but he made that because he saw, let's say, a sort of form of beauty in there,
Mm.
and he brought that into the art world, the canon, the Western canon, and 50, 100 years later, people saw it and they were like, oh, this was so problematic. There was all this going on.
Mm.
So what now? So yeah, it also, I guess, does happen in a like you said, that the works that have had the most political influence maybe were the ones that were made to be not political
Yeah.
at all, and yeah, that they were actually doing a negative thing, and they ended up having lots of positive impact.
Yeah, and it's that, or sometimes even positive impact too. It just it depends on the work. Because like I mean, my dad loves to use the example of French Revolution caricatures
Mm.
and how that can sort of aid political movements. And I sort of understand the need for that sort of thing, right? We see it everywhere now, like even in places like China, like propaganda posters are a thing. And they've been around for so long that they have a certain style to them now, right? That you're just able to identify. You're like, okay, cool, you know. And it's like as much as these countries try to make that the image that wants to be more popularly known, it's like always it's like a painting by somebody, or it's like sometimes it's like a painting by a kid who dies in a revolution, that becomes the whole propagandistic work for a whole political movement, and if you look at that painting being painted, it's like that kid's just painting a little flower. It has nothing, absolutely no meaning, but because it's tied to some event after it's been created, it's now completely changed. And um yeah, it was actually really funny seeing that tweet. I was like, what do you mean you want to make good propaganda? Like, what?
I mean, then go, again, like this.
Start the
I don't know.
Ministry of Truth, like just
Yeah.
pretty much. It's like, yeah, just I mean that is the whole like have you read 1984? I think
Yes,
that's
I have. I have. Yeah.
right. And so it's like that's the whole idea of like Ministry of Truth, is like telling
Yeah.
people what's good, what's bad, and I mean, if also like that also speaks to I mean, here, let me ask you this. Have you noticed that the NFT space is making some of the mistakes that would not happen in the fine art world now, but that's just because some of the artists in the NFT space lack the art historical knowledge that we got taught in university?
Yes, definitely. Yes, the total. Of course, it's well, because it's, first of all, I think the major reason is not because they don't necessarily have the art history
Mm,
education, but the major reason is because there's a great deal of money involved,
mm,
and once money's involved,
yeah.
like the way it is, to the extent that it is, wow, your morals can get thrown out of the window. You can just say, well, fuck that. I don't care about making what I deem to be true or good or valid. If someone's paying me thousands of dollars to just make this thing,
Mm,
then why not? Just let's. I'm just gonna make that from now on. And I think there's that. First of all, there's that.
mm,
Money is a huge factor. And you know what? I can't really blame people for doing that. It's
mm,
just, if it pays the bills, and you know, people need to eat. Artists need to
mm,
eat as well, because So the other answer to that question is, I think we learn to be a bit more critical
Mm.
of our work. We learn how to approach it from different viewpoints, since we learn about the history of image
Mm.
and visual culture. We can make historical and cultural associations. We can make the political associations and kind of inspect and talk about works in that way. So the NFT space, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen in the NFT space, because there are obviously people who are educated enough,
Mm.
people who are well educated in this space too. Of course there are, but there are also lots of people who came here because, that they found a lucrative
Mm.
way of making money, and then things probably got out of control. Just like the art world again.
Oh yeah.
The answer to your question is yes, but at the same time, the same things are still
Oh,
to
absolutely.
this day happening in the art world, because there are just if you do live in a major, it doesn't even have to be a major city, just go outside, take a walk downtown. Most of the art galleries out there are what we call, I guess, vanity galleries,
Mm.
where most of the times artists sometimes even pay to have their work there.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
That's wait.
that
That's the
happens
thing.
a lot. That's the thing. Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like I get so many. They're almost like spams at this point. Messages from these very small galleries in, I don't know, Montreal and stuff. They like send me messages on Instagram.
For
Oh,
real?
like we really like your work. We would like to show it in our gallery, but there is this submission fee for like,
Ah.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
like
Oh, I've
there
had
are so
those
many
too.
people who do those things. What you do is you pay a fee,
And
and they
then.
put up your work on their walls for. So basically, you're kind of renting
Mm.
a store space to show your work. But
Yeah.
those sort of galleries, they do not really care about the art.
Oh, they don't.
They care about making money and selling basically uh, artwork. But it's just there's so many of those out there that function as if they are, I don't know,
Mm.
fast food stores. It's like fast art in a sense. It's just there are so many vanity galleries. When you step outside,
Mm.
you'll see that there's so much commercial work out there.
It's
And
true.
again, once they find a formula, once they find something that's visually appealing that sells, they'll keep, making that and putting that up there. And that is the same thing that's also happening in the NFT space, which is not surprising. So it's
Mm.
happening in the art world too. There's so many people just doing. So that's why we talked about this in the past, and I said I don't see that big of a difference between the art market and the NFT market necessarily. It really is the same thing. And of course, people from the quote unquote high art world will look down on the NFT space and will be
Money.
like, oh, there's like, it's, everyone's interested in the money. Not
Mm.
really. I mean, same thing in the art market. So when we make that comparison, I really do not see that big of a difference between the two.
Mm. Well, here. Okay. So while you were talking, I was also thinking about another thing, right? Because now that you've been introduced to the NFT space, right? And for those listening, Yekta has minted a couple more pieces. Um, you've minted like 8 more. I noticed.
I did, but I need a good camera, because again, I don't make digital work. All my work is on basically either oil or they're paintings, physical
Mm.
paintings. So I really do need a good camera. I really should invest in one, because when I mint something, it just the quality is not really good. So it as an NFT, it's not very, I
Well,
guess, appealing. So
I'm looking. I was looking at your pastel ones, and they look very nice. Um, but I wanted to ask you, like, now that you've been introduced to the NFT space, right? And you're gonna graduate in a year, you know. Where do you see your art, you know, going to? Like not where do you see yourself like exhibiting, but like where do you see yourself like evolving your art into, sort of like, maybe, you know, or like what do you see the future of your art as? Is
So
that too
you're
big of a
asking about the practice and not the which space I choose
yeah,
to,
yeah.
and so basically for now I'm really, like I said, I don't think about that
Mm,
anymore, really. I don't plan ahead and be like, I have ideas that are going inside my head right now, and I put those down. And I feel like the more work I make, and the more I read and explore and
mm,
watch and listen, it just always feeds you, right?
mm,
There's that cliche sentence that goes, "What creativity doesn't exist in a vacuum."
mm.
So the more I make, the more I new ideas I get,
Okay.
and I'm not, planning on, let's say, oh, I'm gonna do this cultural juxtapositions, paintings on rugs for another 2 years. Well, it will stop when it needs to stop,
Mm.
I think. But I will, first of all, I will turn that into a series because
You've been
one
talking
is
about
good.
that for a while.
Yes, yeah, I already have the rugs. Like I bought them. I
Mm.
have them at home. I have the paint. I just have to get going.
Mm.
I'm working on something else right now, but that I will turn into a series. I definitely want to show them in a that will possibly be in the Gallery 115. I definitely want to do a solo show and
Mm.
show those.
Well, have you?
But at the same time,
Mm.
again, going back to your question, I really do enjoy painting landscapes
Yeah.
with oil on canvas. So I am
You're-
once again painting like a landscape right now. It is a narrative landscape. There are narrative elements in it, but it is still a very romantic landscape. So I'm doing that too. I'm still making, the pastels where I put
mm.
lots of cultural motifs. There are some.
I don't think you understand the urge. Like I'm forcing myself not to buy one of your pastel pieces. I'm legitimate. Like I have to force myself, because when I saw it, I was like, oh my god, no, he put it on sale, and I was gonna be like, I literally like scoured through my MetaMask, and I was like, do I have enough for this? Do I have? Nope.
Well, that's honoring. Thank you.
Yo,
But at the same time, I think I will also be,
well,
now every work that I make, I will probably mint them as well. And if someone wants to take, let's say, both the physical and the minted version, they can. Or if someone just wants the minted NFT version, they can. Because first, it
mm,
uh, kind of, like we talked about it, we talked about this, the
mm,
conserving the work, it is always there now,
yeah,
on the blockchain, and it's going to be there. The
mm,
physical might get destroyed.
but the
It can get lost, it can get burnt, but there's going to be a copy of
mm,
it as a token, and that is very, maybe reassuring. I don't know. I guess
oh, I've
that is also really about our. I don't want this to get too philosophical, but it is somewhat about our mortality in a
oh, it
sense,
is.
right?
Oh,
It
absolutely.
really is.
It
Maybe it is a bit pointless in that sense because, like, so what if it's there for forever? It's like, does
it's
that really matter?
I I
But
I recently read the essay I told you about. In part of the essay, it says that no matter, even if you're not an archivist, right? The moment you start to deal with crypto, you become an archivist in some form, regardless of whether you want it or not, because we're actively archiving our work, right? Oh, like even if like just by putting it on the blockchain, like that's just archived there, you know?
yeah, yeah, and again, that's, I guess that I found that aspect of
Mm.
it very nice. Although, like I said, I don't know if that actually matters that much. But at the same time, one of the things the space is doing that should have been a thing in the
Mm.
art world for so long is the royalties.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my
And
god.
I really did that's one aspect. Again, that's one aspect of the space that I respect so much,
Mm,
and I think it is so important
I
that
agree.
an artist, once their work gets resold, replaced, or whatever happens to the work, the artist can keep track of it
Yeah,
on the
absolutely.
in the NFT space. That is huge because in the real world, that does not happen. You
Yeah.
can just lose track of it. Someone can buy your painting and destroy it. Someone
And
can buy your painting and do whatever they want with it.
mm, and like
And
it.
that is, well, again, that it is another topic. How, if that is problematic, or whether, when you choose to sell your work, if you agree to all of that.
Mm,
Um, but it is great that an artist first can keep track of their work. Second, they get paid every time it gets resold. So
mm,
even
exactly.
if it happens that you sold it for $10 and it becomes a $10 million work, maybe you won't be starving.
Exact. And it
So that can be good.
and
Uh,
that is actually like that's the biggest thing I tell people when I tell them about the NFT space. I'm like, you get royalties, specifically for artists. I'm like, yo, you're gonna get royalties, and now we're just like hoping that. So the for those listening, I don't know if you know this, but we've had a problem a little bit, right, where different sites don't honor the royalties set on by the minting site, right? Because part of it is the smart contract hasn't evolved. The smart contract for the tokens hasn't evolved to actually enforce royalties through code that a different marketplace can interact with it, you know? So we have that little problem in the space, but other than that, it's like the royalties are like the biggest life changing fucking thing on the planet. Like, you know, it's like you said, it's like, or I would also say, like, we've heard in university that galleries won't let the artist know their client list because they don't want the artist to strike up a personal relationship with their clients to where either the client gets off nice deals or the client no longer needs the museum, you know? And then here comes this thing that it's like, yeah, no, you have the full power as an artist. You deal directly with the client, and when they decide to sell it, some of the money goes to you, instead of the gallery. Because what the fuck did the gallery do? Nothing. They didn't sell the paint. They didn't paint the painting. They just showed it to people. That's it. That like, that sort of thinking. But yeah.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, of course, there are some great galleries out there who do
Mm.
amazing work. They have great curatorial
Oh,
teams, and
absolutely.
they do respect their artists. But for the most part, it happens the way you just
Oh, yeah. Like
said. So
the bad
yeah,
galleries outweigh the good ones by so many.
yeah, yeah,
Like even residency. Like I used to get emails from this dude who's like, "Hey, I have this residency into this. Um, you pay for the submission fee for the application, and then pay for the living costs and the travel expenses and everything." And I'm like, "So cool. You essentially just fucking get the work and sell my work in a show, and I have to pay for every fucking thing." And like that's how it functions now in the real
yeah.
world.
You're basically, as an artist, you are buying an experience, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah,
and it's just
it's
like
like a vacation. It is actually a vacation.
pretty much. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you pay for a vacation, and like maybe someone will
yeah
buy your work and you'll get a cut from it
the
while you're there.
yeah
But
the promise of a connection.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
and it's like even with galleries, like I feel like even if you get like 75%, like the biggest fee we have in the NFT space at the moment is 15%. You know, it's on foundation, which I'm on, and I'm like, oh, 15%. But even then, like 15% is nothing compared to 50% or 25% or 35%. And the cool thing is, if I decide, for example, like if I decide one marketplace has too many high fees, I can just take the NFT I created and sell it on another marketplace. You also have the ability to burn it and mint it on another marketplace. You can't go to the guy and be like, give me my fucking painting back. You fucking, it's not like we're in contracts and all that. But here we have like full control over everything, destruction, creation, you know, dates. Like it's insane.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, Yekta, thanks for coming on, to our artist talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yo, it was a pleasure for real. Um,
Yeah, it really was. It was a nice talk. Thank you for your questions. You had some great questions.
uh,
So,
Thank you, and um, hopefully, you know, we 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 see more of your work as NFTs. I know we will, but to those listening, go. I'll leave your OpenSea link because and your Instagram links
sounds good. Yeah.
in the description below. Do you have a Twitter by any chance? Where can
I
people?
don't. I don't.
Mm.
I probably should, but
I would recommend it.
yeah, yeah.
With NFTs are more active on Twitter than
Hmm.
Instagram, but your links will be in the description below. Check them out to those listening. Amazing works. I own two of them. So technically I own your Genesis pieces, which is like the wildest thing, because
Yeah, you
it's like
do. Yeah.
I'm like yes. But to those, there are some Genesis pieces for other collections, because you made a different collection. So to those,
Yeah. Yeah.
go check those out. They're fucking amazing.
Now
Um,
I'm gonna make another collection because that will be the, I guess, the
the rug one.
landscapes. The
Oh, the
landscape.
landscapes.
Yeah.
I actually look. I can't wait to see those. Like one of your landscape pieces, I think it was, we talked about it once. Like it was inspired by Carl Jung. I think, the
Yes. Yeah.
journey.
Yes. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite. Oh man, oh, it was great. But anyways, to
Thank
those,
you. Yeah, the one with the rug. You're talking about the one with the rug, right?
I
There's the rug motif in it as
yeah.
well.
Oh
The
yeah.
path. Yeah. Yeah.
It's man, it's great. And yeah, it's to those listening, amazing fucking work. Go check it out. And this will be uploaded now, so you can go check it out on the YouTubes. And to everyone listening, see you next week for our next artist talks. Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me again. Bye.